New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
This is What's Up and Why, bringing you the bright side of life, one fun moment at a time. Brought to you by New Thought Media Network and Thai Media Productions. Give a set of applause emojis in the chat for your co-hosts, Rev KC Taylor and Be Lovely.
Clap for us, clap for us. We're back for another wonderful episode of What's Up and Why. How you be today, Rev Casey Taylor?
You know, I'd be pretty good. I feel like I'm going to save my check-in for the Making Peace with Your Inner Shit Talker program. I will say real quick that I just started a live group of the 90-day program, and I'm in day 2. So I'm going to share that practice and the impact of how I've been feeling about it 3 days in when we get to that portion. So you tell me, how you be?
I feel inspired, a little dash of tired, and a splash of excited that the weekend is tomorrow. Inspired, let me bring it back a little bit. I just listened to this interview that Carrie Hilson, you remember the singer Carrie Hilson?
I do. I think I might know about this interview with about the Beyonce diss track.
Yeah, because she's promoting her new album. So she has a 3-album project that she's coming out with. The first one is Based in Love. So she's promoting this album. This is her first new music in like 13 years, I believe, or something like that. But she was saying how she had to take a step back from the music industry for a while because like she got pushed into doing certain things like she didn't want to do, like singing that verse on what was the name of the song? Turning Me Off or something remix. And she basically, there was a songwriter who wrote the song, and there was a diss, so several lines that was dissing Beyonce and Sierra allegedly. And Carrie had said that she didn't want to do it, but she felt forced to by the producer and by the songwriters, basically saying, well, if you don't do this song, then your album's not coming out. And as a new artist, of course you want your music to come out. So song came out, she got, you know, a lot of blowback, especially from the Beehive, because the Beehive do not play about Beyonce. I remember seeing it on Twitter when people was dragging her and stuff. And so for her to come out and say, like, to finally, you know, clear the air with that, apologize for her role on it, saying how she wished that she never did it, and the healed version of her now, how she had to take time to heal and pour into herself. She realized like it's okay to stand up for yourself and push back and not to feel like, you know, you're being forced to make a decision that you're not comfortable with.
I appreciate you telling me that. I didn't watch the interview. I was scrolling and I saw it. And I remember that moment too. I wouldn't call myself a Carrie Hilson fan, but like the Pretty Girl Rock, we stayed bumping in my house. And there was that notable shift. Like you said, I think that was like the first moment that the wrath of the Beehive was truly felt. Before that, you know, it was very early in the formation of the Beehive, pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we the world got an opportunity to see what the Beehive could really do, and nobody messed with Beyonce again after that. And unfortunately,
I don't know, people still come for Beyonce, but folks know if you come, then the Beehive is going to come and they're going to sting you.
Yes, yeah. So that's what it is. I mean, that's what it is.
Just like how the Lamborghini don't play about Mariah. Shout out to Mariah in the background. Yeah. So, do you want to get into our first segment? It's giving reverence.
I do. I would love to give reverence. My intention for this segment is to highlight people that maybe people don't know about, because I feel like when I watch, listen to podcasts, watch internet shows, people are talking about the same stuff that I already know, and so I really wanted to highlight unsung figures. And I don't even remember how I came across this person. It probably was just like a Facebook meme that I was fact checking to find out if it was real and discovered that in fact it was real. So the story that the meme that I saw was about how there was a drug in the just during the FDR administration, I believe it was, that the drug was called thalidomide, and it was designed for women who people assigned female at birth that were pregnant and having trouble with nausea. So it was an anti-nausea medication, and it was legal in the UK. And Frances Oldham Kelsey was a reviewer for the US FDA. And the FDA at that time, I can't speak for what it is today, but at that time, they didn't have a whole lot of say around what they rejected and why they rejected it and how long they could reject it for. So she really worked the system to ensure that this drug didn't come into the United States, and her concern was that there was a lack of evidence about the drug safety, and her concerns proved to be justified because that drug caused serious birth defects in kids in the UK. The picture that I saw of the meme was a bunch of children at the pool, and they were missing limbs, a bunch of them sitting at the pool and missing limbs, and I identified and highlighted the fact that Frances Kelsey's work at the FDA prevented from that drug from ever hitting the States. So once they determined that it was causing these massive birth defects within children, it was pulled from the market altogether, and American children were spared from it altogether. And, when you think about the FDA, the fact that there was a female scientist who was not in a position of, authority. She wasn't the head of the FDA. She was a reviewer of these drugs, and she did everything in her power to ensure that it never reached these shores. And all of the children that were born in that era have her to thank for not experiencing birth defects as a result of their mothers having taken this drug.
Man, it's a wonderful thing to hear about stories like this, because this is something that you brought to my attention. I was never made aware of this. And I'm just thinking of all of the families whose lives that this woman has changed for the better in this country because, of her work and her advocacy. So shout out to her. Thank you, Rev. Casey Taylor, for giving reverence. Our producer Clarissa says, Call the Midwife did an episode on this from the perspective of the affected families in the UK in the late 50s. Have you seen or heard of that?
I'm familiar with the show. I haven't watched very much of it, so I didn't know they did an episode of it. I love that Clarissa has seen it and remembers this. Shout out to our producer for pulling that out for us. Thank you.
Yes. So we're going to get into our next segment called Do Better Blues. Now, this is a segment where I take a little time to tell you guys to come a little bit closer, sit down. We got to do better, guys. We got to do better for this world. We got to do better for our community. And I'm speaking specifically to the city of Summit, New Jersey this week. So a news report from NBC News came out that says a wealthy New Jersey city is considering a controversial ordinance that would fine or potentially jail homeless people for sleeping in public spaces. Now, Summit Council member Jamel Boyer, a Republican, introduced the ordinance Tuesday at the Summit Council meeting, saying its purpose is to preserve the safe and accessible use of public property for all residents, pedestrians, and businesses. Now, the parts of this ordinance, it would prohibit homeless individuals from camping, which is like putting up a tent where they can sleep and all that stuff in public areas in the city, like in streets, sidewalks, alleyways, parks, bus shelters, athletic courts, and benches. So basically, if you're homeless, you can't sleep on those areas. You can't, put up anything there, because if you do, violators get this, up to a fine of up to $2,000 and or imprisonment or community service for a term not to exceed 90 days. So the city of Summit, I just want to say, if a person is unable to afford a roof over their head, I'm not even talking about an apartment. I'm talking about a hotel at a motel room, a very, very cheap rate. I don't know how much they go for, but I feel like the cheapest that I've ever paid for a hotel was like maybe like, in the 80 or 70 range for like a night. So if a person cannot afford a hotel room for the night, what makes you think that they can afford a $2,000 fine?
I mean,
The math doesn't math. It doesn't make any sense.
it does not. And New Jersey is not the first place to consider this option. I currently work as a youth care coordinator at CSU Youth Services. And from like 22 to 23, I served as a case manager. And one day, this was like a Monday night, I saw a Facebook post about how there was a representative on the city council that had proposed a very similar ordinance. I don't know the specifics with the math of like what the jail time was and what the fine was, but it was a very similar ordinance. And the Facebook post was an invitation to show up at the city council meeting the very next day. So the fact that this ordinance was introduced the day before the city council meeting really demonstrates what it was that they were trying to do. And I was amazed by the fact that despite the fact that I received this information as a case manager on a Tuesday evening or a Monday evening or whenever it was, that the very next day when I went to work, because as a case manager, like I'm going to work, living my business, doing my thing. When I showed up at work, I discovered that the executive director and a majority of our executive team were at that city council meeting, and our case management team turned on the stream of the city council team or the city council meeting and watched so many service providers from across the city pack the room and testify as to what a ridiculous idea this is. Like you said, the math don't be mathing. And for me, it was a big testament to see just how much the Oklahoma City service providers were truly advocating for the clients that we serve. And I don't know what the social services system looks like in Summit, New Jersey, but I'm sure Oklahoma City has it's a major city. I've never heard of Summit.
It says that this is a wealthy New Jersey city. So if they're wealthy, they should have the services, the resources to help these people. My thing is, instead of finding these homeless people $2,000 because they don't have anywhere to go, why not send like a city service van or something to pick these people up and take them to a shelter? Why not provide them with resources or some type of rehabilitation instead of just, finding these people $2,000? If they can't afford housing, they can't afford a $2,000 fine. Like a new Redfin report says that the average minimum wage worker in America, the average minimum wage is $7.25. That has not changed since President Obama was in office. The average worker would have to work 106 hours a week to afford a $1,600 priced apartment in this country, which is the median price in this country right now. And I just don't understand how, if you're in this wealthy city, you have all this money, why are you hating on the homeless? Why do you hate homeless people so much that you want to make their situation, like, it's already dehumanizing if you're in a situation like that? Why make their situation even worse? Add on to the stress that they're already going through.
I am sure that there's another city. I don't know where Summit, New Jersey is, but I bet there's another city that they're just trying to keep homeless people out of inside their city limits. And when you think about it, like Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, though Beverly Hills does not have an ordinance like this, the city transportation was designed in a way that buses don't easily come through Beverly Hills. There are no train stations anywhere near there, where they've designed. The city of Beverly Hills has ensured that the way that Los Angeles public transportation was designed makes it so that it's not easy for a homeless person to end up in the city limits. And I'm very sure, I don't know anything about Summit, but I'm very sure that there's some other place that they're hoping that probably is serving the homeless. And I think, what we were saying about, like, why are we hating on the homeless? That this really points to a larger issue around the ways that we support one another and care for one another. And we've essentially come to a way of being of, it's not my problem. What their problem is not my problem. I got all my money. I don't want to see anybody living in suffering in any way. I don't want to feel like I have to give my hard-earned money to somebody who's living on the street. And so there's this, I think this really gives spotlights a larger cultural issue of how we are not a community of people that really support and look out for one another.
The conversation that I see a lot on social media, well, when I used to be on social media a lot, was, I had to do it by myself. I had to pull myself out by the bootstrap. People shouldn't be looking for a handout. First of all, I just want to say, I don't think there's anybody on this planet that can say that they have gone through this life and have gotten to where they've gotten to without the kindness or support of at least one person. There was somebody in your life who, from the kindness of their heart, did something that helped you along the way of your journey. I know I can absolutely say there's been people on, more than enough hands that I have to count that have helped me along my journey to get me to where I am. So I always believe, like I always tell you, I think that we were all placed on this earth with different abilities and capabilities and talents and passions so that we can work in community together. Because when we are unified, we are stronger. When we are divided, we're broken.
Yeah, I appreciate this question. Who can you recall helped you in a time of need? And Be Lovely, you and I come from a very supportive family. That
I was about to say one of the aunties.
and those aunties that you're talking about, my mom is one of those. And so my mom has, she is who got us to Key West for our Key West Cousins trip. And so just this, we've had so much support from our family, and we're part of a family that is not a pull yourself up by the bootstraps. If any one of us was in a tough situation, we know for a fact that our families would be there. Working at this youth shelter, the majority of the youth that we serve, actually, I'm not going to even use statistics because I'm not going to use numbers, but I will say that the youth that I come in contact with are either they have aged out of the foster care system. Our shelter supports youth from 15 years old. So that means that the 15 to 18-year-olds that we already have in there are youth that our Child Protective Services aren't even dealing with, looking at. They're like, oh, you've got a place to stay, leaving them alone. So they're basically being raised by homeless shelter staff from 15 to 18 years old. Some of them are aged out of the foster care system. And so at 18, they're living on the street and find their way into our shelter. Many of them also have some mental health challenges, and their parents didn't know what to do. And so they just kind of leave the youth to go into the shelter and figure it out. And in all honesty, I had a very personal situation like that. Somebody that I was really close to that was dealing with mental health issues that I had to refer. I didn't even refer them to the shelter because I was working at the shelter, and that challenge was something that I didn't want to put the other staff through. But we ended up working it out, and the youth moved through the shelter and ended up getting the care and the independence they need to transition right out of there. But that reality, the fact that in this city, and most cities don't have a youth shelter. So, the fact that when children turn 18, that all of a sudden you're an adult, and our school systems don't actually teach how to be an adult. There's this expectation of you to have a family that teaches you how to get your first apartment. And as you identified, not only is an apartment not affordable for the average 18-year-old, but also the credit that's necessary. My mom co-signed on my first apartment. How did you get your first apartment? Do you remember?
Aunt Kathy co-signed on my first apartment in college.
So if you have a family member with bad credit, and the other encounter that I've experienced is people who have a history, a long history of homelessness. If you were born to homeless parents, how are you supposed to know what successful independent living looks like if you've never
Very
had that
true.
example before?
Mhm.
There have been youth who've come into the shelter that are third generation homeless. So if
Oh,
we're not doing anything to address this situation, if all we're doing is fining and jailing homeless people, we're continuing to ignore the fact that generations of Americans are being born into this country with no knowledge or education of any kind of how to live independently or that support to get their very first apartment.
See, and I feel that, in my opinion, people who are voted into these positions where they're supposed to be making these decisions for their community, you should be making decisions that's inclusive, not just of the people who are housed, but also the people who are unhoused and how you can help them. Use the taxpayer money for services that can help those people instead of putting them in a deeper hole and, making them even worse in your community. Like, I just always assume, like, as a public servant, your role is to serve your constituents and, lead with empathy, lead with kindness, lead with care, lead with, how can I make this city better than how I left it? And just like even seeing how in DC, we used to have a lot of tent cities in DC until the current administration took hold and they are pushing this whole Make DC Beautiful Again initiative. And they basically forced the mayor's hand to wipe out all of the tent cities that was around the district. Like the average apartment in Washington, D.C., a studio is going to run you close to 3,000. You're going to be in the mid 2000s, mid to high 2000s, close to 3,000. That's very, very unaffordable, especially for people who, if you're working a food service job, a nonprofit or something, it's very hard to afford that. And I just don't understand how we got to this point in society where it's like, oh, well, I had to do it by myself. I didn't have any help.
You
I
know,
can't help somebody else. I can't have, I can't care. I don't want to see, just because you don't want to see it doesn't mean it's not there. I think it's our responsibility to leave this world better than how we found it for the next generation.
and that is why we were inspired to start What's Up and Why, to take the emphasis of the ivy of the world,
Mhm.
and lean into the light and the fun, bringing you the bright side of life, one fun moment at a time, to recognize that despite the fact that we now live in an era where compassion has become just not a descriptive quality of who we are as a culture, that you and I are doing the best that we can to shed a light on these kinds of things, identify what is ours to do. Clearly, what is mine to do is continue to work at this shelter. I'm serving as a floater. I work full time as a senior minister at United Life Center for Spiritual Living in Oklahoma City, and work part time just for any shifts that they need, that they need coverage for. I step in when I can, and that's the thing that I can do. I can sign the petition that allowed for CSU to expand, which that city council decision just came through yesterday. So there's a lot of people in the world, in this country, that really care for and advocate for others, and I'm grateful that you and I are examples of that.
I think that's also because of our foundation. We come from a family that's very caring and kind and nurturing, and we care. We have love. We spread love, and that goes into all aspects of our life. And I feel like that's how why you and I connect so well, not just because we're family, but because we have the same values.
Yeah. So as I said, when I skipped my check-in, I said that I would lean into my check-in a little bit further as we get to the segment of making peace with your inner shit talker. And I mentioned that I am in day 2 of the program. And day 2 of the program, the question, there's a reflection question that each person, including me, when I move through the program, is invited to take into meditation or journaling. And this time around, what I'm doing is I'm writing a Substack post about each day. I haven't written day 2 yet. I've got committing to this shit. I recommend writing a commitment. So I've got a post about that commitment. And then yesterday was day one about identifying the difference between your inner shit talker and your inner wisdom. And today is day two is, do you believe that your intuition knows its shit? So I'm asking this as you were talking about what the values that we've been raised with. I don't know about intuition, because it's the same thing around the issue of compassion with do we live in a culture? Are we part of an environment? Are we part of a family that really teaches us to trust our intuition no matter what? So what do you think, Be Lovely? Does your intuition know its shit?
Yes, it does. I call it Holy Spirit that lives within me. But before, I got really aligned with my spirituality, I will always say like, "Oh, I have this gut feeling." And if I went against that gut feeling, I would end up regretting it because the gut feeling was the right decision that I should have made. And so I've gotten to a point where I listen to that small, still voice that's guiding me. And now that I listen, I feel like things go a lot more better for me.
I am with you on that. I feel the same way that I believe my intuition is that still small voice, that Holy Spirit that lives within me. So I love that we are talking about this on the New Thought Media Network today. As you know, what inspired me to blow up my life and move to Oklahoma
Don't say
City.
you blew up your life. Your life evolved.
It was literally the language that I received. Like I was in a park, I was in Wheeler Park in Oklahoma City, and my intuition was like, blow up your life and move to Oklahoma City. And I was like, what? I don't want to blow up my life. I don't want to do that at all. And to your point, the reality of it was truly an evolution. But that experience of hearing my intuition inspired me to make such a big, terrifying move, and for the people around me to react from this place of fear, this is why I asked you about from the family perspective, because you are one of the few, you and the cousins of your generation were the ones that fully supported me, who are like, oh yeah, your intuition told you this, do it. Like you were excited and cheering me on for my adventure.
I was.
You sure were. And the older members of our family still struggle with it to this day, had this, these expectations of me to operate from the status quo. And what I feel like I've really learned from getting to know my intuition and trusting it in ways that I never have before really helps me build a life of freedom, unlike I've ever imagined, of traveling all over the country and really living my best life. So today, one of the things that's been on my mind is a friend of mine is Reverend Elijah Christopher Hayden is getting married at Camp Cedar Ridge, which is like our spot. The Spirit Uncensored retreat is going to be there in November. I've been to several events there. And that wedding's happening in June. And this morning, as I was looking at flights and thinking about transportation to Camp Cedar Ridge from Portland, I was like, ooh, my money situation is not looking great. I'm not feeling I don't know if I should go to this wedding. I don't know if this is a good idea or not. And part of me suspected that today's question of the day was about trusting my intuition, knowing that my intuition knows its shit. And when I went to yoga class right before this, I went to, it's called like therapeutic yoga or something, has a whole lot of stretching and meditation in it. I got very clear that if I don't feel like I've got money for something, all I got to do is pray on it. Like there's no reason to worry about it. And then I remembered, like, I've got a ton of money in savings. Like, and it really demonstrated how good I am about when I got money in savings. I don't look at it. I don't touch it. So still not planning to look at it or touch it. But it was just this reminder that it's not like I'm in a financial bind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm fine. My bills are paid. And my intuition just really just gave me this comfort of knowing that if I want to go to this wedding, I can. And if I don't know where this money is going to be replenished back into my account, whether it's the regular operations account that I operate from or my savings account, that wherever it comes from and however I use it. Like, I get to know that my intuition knows its shit. If I'm not meant to go to this wedding, if this is not a good idea, my intuition would make it very clear. But my intuition is like, bitch, you got all this money in your savings account. Like, there is no reason for you to be tripping and being like, oh, you have money to go to this wedding. Like, and this wedding's in June. It's April. Anything can happen between now and then.
See, something I like to do is like say affirmations. Like one of my affirmations around money is money flows to me always.
Yeah.
So shout out to our intuitions, listening and following our intuitions. Shout out to using affirmations. It's about that time. So I want to leave you guys with this reminder to always ask the question, what's up and why? And think about the people in your community as you go about your day. I'm Miss Be Lovely.
And I am Reverend Casey Taylor. Have the best day ever.